Alright, so I am streaming again. I'm just double checking right here. Okay, so I'm on our backup internet line. We should be pretty good on here. This is an LTE connection. However, this does get a solid 40 to 50 megabits per second up. So I want to see how this goes, if we're going to get drops or anything. It might be a little rough for a sec, I've noticed. But it should catch up. Let me see here. I don't know if this is this better or worse, guys. All right, I just reset the stream to drop the bit rate down. Because I was seeing a lot of drop frames. Let's see where we're going. I can't win with these internet connections because the issue is, if I go to AT&T, my max upload on AT&T is 10, so my choices are Comcast or literally an LTE backup line, which is what we have. I have an extra SIM card that is activated on Verizon, and I have that in like an Ethernet modem essentially. I'm not seeing any drop frames since I dropped the bit rate. I'm looking really stable on the LTE now. It's a complete flat line, so we should be good. How are we doing now? And I'll show you guys what I'm seeing here. Nope, that's... Oh, yeah, it's OBS. So basically what I'm looking at is right here. I'm looking for this to be pretty flat. Which it was, you can see here it was, but I'm not getting drop frames though, so it might be okay. It might be okay. Whereas the Comcast, you can see the Comcast is just, it's all over the place. So, all right. We're gonna roll with this because I'm not seeing any drop frames. YouTube is saying that our stream is in good health, so that's good. I'm streaming out of here at 1080 60, so you guys should be seeing 1080p 60 frames a second is what we're sending out at. So yeah, okay, the preview looks good. All right, we're gonna roll with this. All right, so we got all our parts here. What we're gonna start by doing is I'm gonna go ahead and close my live stream here. I got all my monitoring up here, so I'll know if stuff is not working correctly. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take show the rest of the parts. So these are all the goodies. So Tom purchased the board from me, and when you buy the board, you get the board, the motor, and a wire harness. And this actually has 2 stepper motor connectors in it. It's got the X and the E. I buy the whole cable set from Creality. So what you can do is when you get this, you can just take the sleeving and take it off of the cables because you're only going to need one of these. So essentially you have an extra one. And they are labeled X and E. They're both wired the same. You can use either one. So I'm going to take the E one, which I got here. So I've got an extra X end stop wire and an extra stepper motor wire. So we're just going to coil these up. And then we'll put them over in the corner here. I'm just zooming in on the chat here. Let me switch to live chat. There we go. All right. So let me wrap these up, and then Tom will get extra cables here. So I'm going to take this box that his stuff was going to be shipped in. I'm going to put all the stuff that is his back in the box because whenever I work on a customer system, anything I take off gets sent back with them. Just because it's not my property, and I've got enough extra stuff laying around here. So we're going to start by swapping his motherboard. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this from the printer. All right, so everything but the EZABL is disconnected now. So, anyway, know what the build plate is going to be? It should be the same as Ender 3, which is 235 by 235. So we cover the products. So we got our e-motor cable here. We've got the stepper, and we've got the board. I'll take the board out of here so you guys can see it. So it comes all nicely packaged like this. When you get it from us, it will be resealed. We open every single board, and we load a test firmware on here, which goes through and tests all the functions of the board. Then we repackage it. So it ships with our firmware on it. When we get them from Creality, they don't have any firmware on them. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the board. So the board itself it looks just like your CR-10S board. It's actually a CR-10S board, except you look over here, this little guy, this is your X, Y, Z, E, and then E1. This is not present on your standard boards. This is what we're having Creality fit when we customize these boards. That's what makes these so special. And as far as I know right now, we're the only ones that carry these. I'm assuming more people will carry them eventually. But as of right now, TS3D is the only place to get these boards if you want to drop in replacement. You can use other boards in your CR10, but these are literally drop-in. You're not going to have to be doing any custom brackets, taking a Dremel to your case. This is going to fit in your standard one, even if you have a CR10 or a CR10S. Now, his is kind of nice. I'm glad his is a 10, because what that allowed me to do is show you how this board, because of the firmware changes we made, will work with the 10 LCD. And he's also got our filament sensor, which will, again, work with this board. So I'll show you guys how all that'll go on. Other products here, Tom is going with a 2-in-1 adapter instead of dual separate hot ends, which is my preference. This is going to allow us to use his stock CR10 hot end with dual colors. So this will sit right above the hot end and feed both of the filaments in. I'm also going to go grab some of our tough tube, because I'm going to replace all of his tubing with our tough tube. For both the extruders. I think he's got Capricorn on there, so we definitely want to get rid of that. And then again, the 2 aluminum extruders. So you want to typically run the same extruders. It is possible to run dual separate extruders, like a Titan and a standard one or something. I don't personally like to mix and match, so I'm setting them up with 2 matching extruders, so everything's nice and simple. And then we had the bracket I showed. So I'm going to start by opening his control box here. Is chat working? Because I feel like it has not updated at all. Let me see here. Okay. It's just everybody wasn't. I was like, is chat locked up on my screen? Okay. Just in 3D. I have not tested this on the Ender 3. However, the Ender 3 uses the same LCD as the CR10, and it has the same mounting holes since it's a CR10 board. In theory, this should fit. I have not tested it. This board is labeled for use with 24 volts, so it should work. I haven't tried it, so no guarantees if you get one. But in theory, yes, it should work, and I could add support into our firmware for the Ender 3 with the dual extrusion. So I'm just gonna grab. I got a full tool set here. I haven't lost any of the bits from this one. I'm gonna grab a little magnetic holder. Just so I don't lose all these screws here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take all these screws out. Let me move over to the small cam here. You guys can see what's going on. So we're going to take all the screws out of this. The back order should start shipping no more than 2 weeks from today. I have it on the site. I think it's like July 13th is the latest date. I don't put guaranteed dates because things can get held up in customs, and I don't need a million people messaging us about it. It's kind of order it, and as soon as we get it, we start shipping it. So let's see. Yeah, Matt, I saw your text. I've just been busy today. We had a bunch of inventory come in, so I haven't been able to get back to your text message. So now I'm taking the 4 screws out of the side for the power supply. Tom has one of these little SD adapter dealies on here, this printed part. Oh, almost lost a screw. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this and set this aside, and we'll put that back on. All right. So we got an OG CR10 board in here, which is the original black one that even has the jumper to do flashing with. Here, let's get this in here. All right, let me move my light so we can get some more light on this. There we go. All right. How's that? You guys can see? All right, so he's got his easy out board, so we're going to take this off here. This is the easy out board here. This just passes through to the LCD. So we're going to go ahead and take that off, and we're going to set this to the side. Let me set the camera on a fixed focus so it's not going crazy on you guys. All right, that'll be good. All right, so I'm going to start by removing the power supply here. Or not the power supply, the motherboard. I'm going to unscrew the screws that hold this in. There are 4. All right, so now our board is loose. And we want to get these screws out of here so we don't lose them. And I'm going to disconnect all of our stepper connections from the board. Tiny Machines also has a video on doing a board swap. At this point, I'm going to need a flathead so I can take all the connections out for the power and whatnot. This light's a little too bright. There, there we go. That should be a little better. Let's see where I can get this to focus. All right. So we're going ahead and we're removing all these here. So yellow is your hot end on the CR10. This little red one here is the fan. This is the fan header. And that's for your controllable fan, not your always on fan. You got your hot end and your bed thermistors over here, which are these 2 right here, which I just disconnected. Now, if you're wondering, okay, well, they're both black, how do I figure out which one? You can look at what socket they go to on the back here, because this is the bed connection and the bottom one's the hot end. That's how you can figure out which one it goes to in terms of what's the extruder and what's the hot end. So I'm going to disconnect the Z end stop here, and then looks like I forgot one of the hotbed connectors. So we got our old board out here. So here's our old CR10 board. And I'm going to clip this zip tie here because it's a pain to work around it without it clipped. You know, typically in my office I have a million snips, and then when I need to find just a particular tool like a snip, I can't find it. So, all right, we got our wires freed up here, which is going to make installing this a lot easier. So we've got yet more zip ties holding these wires. So I'm going to free these up so we can work with them a little easier. All right. So we've got our wires. These are for our heated bed. Those go to the MOSFET. We've got our bed thermistor. And these are all our hot end connections here. Okay. So these two yellow wires are for the hot end. These are the actual heater cartridge itself. And then the little 2-pin fan here, this is for the layer fan. Now, the always-on fans on this particular printer are all wired to these, so these are always on 12 volt here. So, all right. Now, on this board, we don't have an always-on 12 volt output. We've got our bed, our hot end 1, or heater 0, it's labeled, and then our second hot end. So we're gonna put our yellow wires into here, and then the MOSFET goes here, and then these other ones we're going to have to lump in somewhere else, usually to the power leads. I'm gonna actually take these wires off of the power supply just so it's easier to work with here. Otherwise, I'm going to be fighting with them, and it's not gonna be fun. So I'm just taking these off the power supply so I have them free so I can work with them. Now, here's an interesting thing. So you guys see these? These are the leads that go to the motherboard, okay? And you guys see a problem here? These are fine, these crimps, but these wires should never be soldered when you're using these style connections. These are meant to have bare wires put in them. Manufacturers doing this can actually lead to a fire. It'll overheat the terminal. It'll cause hot spots. So if you guys take your printer apart, clip these off, strip them, and put the bare wire into the terminals, okay? This is a safety hazard. All right. So I got my wire strippers here. We're going to cut these ends off. So we're going to clip the ends off and strip these. I do this to all the printers I work on. So if you guys ever have us do any work on your printer, we're going to take it apart. And if we see anything like this, we're going to go ahead and rectify it. So just bare wires are going to go into the terminal here. All right. Now, what I want to do with these, so these are the always on, these two things here. These are the always on 12 volt connection for the case fans. Normally, I mean, you can try to get them into the same power input as the power wires, but it's kind of a pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend these and basically wire them direct to the powers, the PSU. So let me grab my Hako here and heat that up. Just trying to find some extra wire here to run an extension on these. Surprisingly, I don't have any 2-conductor wire just laying around. Typically I do. Here we go. I got some. All right. Yeah. Yeah. The silent fans, like the Noctuas and the XM2s, they don't push enough air. The ones we sell on our site are Sunon brand, and they've been tested not to have heat creep issues. Because a lot of people, they go with the quiet fans and they don't realize that if you cut down your airflow too much, then what's going to happen is you're going to get heat creep and you're going to get clogs in your nozzles. So don't use Noctuas. Everybody uses them. They cause more problems as work. Do you want a printer that works, or do you want one that's dead silent? Because you can't have both. Your fans are going to make noise if they're moving the correct amount of air. So we're going to extend these power wires here. I'm hoping I can solder onto this little end here, otherwise I'll take this off. I believe I've been able to solder onto these before. All right, looks like it took. Yeah, we're good. We got a nice solid connection. I wish I had heat shrink, but we're going to be doing this old school here. Where you have good old 3M electrical tape. All right. So now for our ground. Shade it. Yeah, you can definitely use the tough extruders. I have a machine with the tough extruders on it, and I have a couple here with the aluminum ones we're putting on. The aluminum ones are just a lower cost option. And I wanted to put those on because that's what most people are going with. That's why I wanted to do the stream with those. Tom's got them for free, so he can't really complain. But that's what we're going to be putting on here. There we go. That took real nice. Nice shiny, no cold solder. We got a nice tight connection. So, and this will vary. If you have, like, I'm just making this easier on myself. I could fit these in. I just don't feel like struggling with it, so I'd rather just extend the power and not have to wrestle with these connectors trying to fit into the main power input. I'm just going to run these up to the power supply then. All right. I just like to tidy these up once I get them wrapped. I do a nice tight wrap of electrical tape here, just to make it look nicer. Not like you're gonna see it anyways, but I just want this to be easier to work on now and later. All right. So now we got our always on 12 volt for our fans. Now we can run this separately to the power supply. We don't have to worry about trying to fit it into the other connectors on the board. So this will make our life a little easier, so I can push this off to the side here. And we don't have to worry about this right now. We're going to connect that right to the power supply. All right. So, see how much nicer it is? Now we don't have to worry about jamming those in. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my power wires in. Now on here, it's labeled plus and minus on the bottom. So there's your positive right here and your negative here. So you're going to twist these wires right here. And then you're going to put them in. So red is positive, black is negative. And apparently my screwdriver doesn't want to hang on to its extension tonight. All right. So there we go. Notice how this is nice and in there. There's no exposed wire. I'm pulling on this. It's not going anywhere. That's what you want. And then once I figure out what I did with his ground wire, I'll attach that. It fell down. So we're going to do the same with the ground, put it in the other side, and tighten this down. You're not going to crank it down. You just want to make sure when you tug on it, it doesn't come out, and you shouldn't see any wire. You should just see insulation. So that's good. And then double check you got your positive and your negative right. Positive is red, negative is black. There we go. And then, look at that. We got more wires that are tinned. So, what do? We're going to cut these off. These are the hot end wires, and then we're going to strip them and put them into the terminals. Now, you might have to cut back a little. I need to find some snips here because these cutters stink on these. All right. So, what you want to feel is sometimes when they tin these, it's actually, there's solder on the wires. It's tin in the insulation because the wire will soak it up. So you want to clip a little past here to get rid of all that tinning. Because, again, you don't want these wires tinned. It could cause a hot spot, which will then melt your connectors. So I'm going to go ahead and strip these and get them ready to be put back in. Might have stripped them a little long here. Just trim these a little bit. One I definitely did a little too long. Alright, that's about as much wire as you want. Is right around that level. That's how much wire you want, roughly. The MOSFET wires are tinned, but they're not carrying current. So you don't really need to worry about those. The MOSFET on these CR-10s are polarity sensitive, so you need to match up the positive and negative on these. So if you see, you'll see hotbed, it's labeled plus, plus and minus. So we're going to go ahead and put these in. You might have to unscrew these first to drop down the little openings here. You see them dropping down, and then we can put the wires in. All right, there's our MOSFET. Here's our hot end. These are already dropped down. Now, if you had a second hot end, it would go on these last two terminals here. And then your second thermistor goes on this port here, TH2, and this is your bed, and this is your main thermistor. All right, so we got all the wires themselves in. I'm going to go ahead and connect this fan to the fan here. These two are fan ports. These are controllable fans, so this was our controllable fan. I'm going to put this on here. And then we've got our, let's see, we should have our thermistor connections, and this should be our bed. So I'm going to connect our bed here. to the TB connection. And then our hot end temp goes to TH1. Now, since he has the CR10 LCD, normally what you do, so this is EXP1, this is EXP2. If you put your cable in the correct way, it's not going to work. You actually have to rotate it 180 degrees and force it into this EXP1 header. It'll work, it'll go in rough, but the nice thing is, since he has the Easy Out kit, this board is not keyed, so I can put this on here and then hook his LCD up backwards. So this will give him filament sensing, even though he didn't have the stock CR-10S one. Easy Out works on the S boards. So kind of got backwards compatibility. So we're going to hook up our end stop connections. This is Y. So we're going to go... Actually, let me put the board in before I do the end stops, because that's kind of a pain to do because of how short these are. So this board will line up exactly like your other board. Okay, the SD and the USB will line up just how they were in the old one, which is the whole point of getting this board versus doing a custom solution. Yes, it's more expensive, but it's not going to take you a ton of time. I don't know why this camera is not like metering its light correctly. Basically, it's the convenience. That's why these boards cost so much. Because one, it costs us a lot to get them, because we're having these custom made from their standard setups. But it's convenience. So we're not having to make any adapters. I'm not cutting up the case. Everything is as it was factory in terms of the whole case and everything. I'm trying to figure out what happened to... I feel like I'm one screw short for the motherboard. I dropped it or it's sticking. So I got 5 here for the bottom, which means I'm missing one for the... Oh, it's in the case. That makes sense. All right. All right, so there we go. We got our 4 screws in. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can reconnect our motors here. So we've got all these labeled. So this is our E. Which goes to E0. Got our E0. We've got our Z. It doesn't matter which Z port you plug it into. They're connected in parallel on the board. And then we got our X and Y, which are lining up with the new board with no issue. So I just got to put these in. Come on. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my second E cable. So I'm going to take the cable that came with this board, and I'm going to fish it through the grommet in the back. It's kind of a tight fit, but we can do it. Come on, there we go. We're almost in. I had to kind of put it in on an angle, or like sideways, I should say. Put the plug sideways, so I didn't put the plug in like long ways. I put it in to the side like this. All right, so this is going to go to our E1. This is going to be for our new stepper motor we're adding. So that goes to E1 there. And I'm just going to route this out of the way. All right, and let's reconnect our end stop. So we've got our Y. And our X. And our Z should be somewhere in here. Ah, here it is. Z's right here. All right. I don't know if this will be better or not. And do a warm light. I don't know if that'll help. That'll help it balance a little better. Anyways, so we got everything hooked up here. All right, we're just gonna leave it on the cool white. We're almost done with the up close stuff anyway. So since he has the easy out board, we're gonna go ahead and connect the LCD the same way he had it. So the little tab is going towards the filament sensor plug. And then we're gonna put it on the board, and this will essentially be like flipping it backwards. If you guys didn't have the easy out board, or you have one of our newer boards that have the keyed connector on them, you would just basically force this into the board here. And I'll show you right now. So I'm just going to push down on it, and it goes right in despite the key. You can cut the key off if you want, and what I mean by the key is this little tab here. You can take your side cutters and snip it off. Me personally, I just force it in and call it a day. Keep it simple, you know. So we're going to connect, if you have a CR-10 LCD like we have here, it goes on EXP1. And it works with the Easy Out. So you're able to retain all your existing upgrades. Easy AVL works with the board. Easy Out works with the board. If you have a stock CR-10S filament sensor, that works with the board. I've gone and made sure all that stuff works. So it's not like you have to change a bunch of things. So at this point, everything's connected. I'm going to go ahead and connect these back up to the power supply. And then we're going to check the VREFs on the X, Y, Z, E0 and E1, and we want to make sure those are set to good levels. And I just check these whenever I'm working on a machine. I got it open, and I'm not sure if it's had the proper VREF set. I'm going to go ahead and check them, and especially since this is a new board, who knows what they're set to from the factory. So I'm going to reconnect this here. This is our 12 volt connection. And I need to hunt down a multimeter. Whoa! My little tripod is falling down here. It decided it doesn't want to work anymore. All right, shut my iron off. Let me find a multimeter. I had one yesterday. Question is, where did I put it? All right, I found another one. All right. So I'm gonna start by testing his power and making sure that that's set. The 12 volt, we want to run it like 13 and a half just to get some heater quick up times. I have a feeling he's already tuned it. But like I said, I've got the machine here. I've got it open. I'm going to do all the checks on here. You know, it's like when you bring your car in for a tune-up or an oil change, and they just kind of check everything. So now, make sure, like, I don't have the power supply screwed in yet, but make sure that it's not going to short anything out. This is mains voltage on this side, okay? So do not touch that. Power's on. LCD is working because this I had already loaded a test firmware on that supported the 10 LCD, but we're going to go over the firmware in a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and test his power supply here. I'll just put that here so you guys can see, and he's got it set around 13, so that's good. So I'm going to leave it. Flip this cover down very carefully if you're not as confident as I am. Move this out of the way. Now there's power going through this, so be very careful. I've done this a lot, so it's not that big of a deal. I'm going to go ahead and test his VREF. So I'm going to grab a ground, and I'm going to check the X, which is at 0.8. That's good. Y, 0.8. That's good. Z, 1.08. That's great. E 0.8, that's good, and E 1.8. So our VREFs are good. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and shut the power off to this and cap this back up. So at this point, the board is done. The hardware part is done. I've got to reconnect his power Something fell. I don't know exactly what. It's... Oh. My snips fell. Alright. Let's get that out of there. Let's cap this up. None of the wires are hitting any of the fans, so we're good. Alright. So to make this easier on myself, I'm going to strip these now. And connect them to the power supply before I actually put the power supply fully in there, because otherwise it's a pain. So these are the wires for the fans. Now, he does have power run here for his EZABL, so I'm going to use these and just combine these. And these are just standard wires. I'm going to put new ends on these, and we're going to crimp them here. No, we are not a USA store for AliExpress. We do a lot of different things. I mean, we do resell a lot of parts, but we have a lot of custom stuff that's just us. Strip that a little bad. We have a lot of custom stuff that's stuff we make, like our EZABL kits, our Easy Out filament sensors. We stock a lot of high quality stuff like our mats, but we do support on everything. So we have an email that you can send an email to if you need help with something. We've got community forums, we've got Discord, we got Facebook groups. There's a lot of avenues to get help if you need it. Alright, so I got his EZABL power wires and my power wire for the fans. So I'm going to twist these together and I'm going to put some crimps on them. And then we'll be done inside the control box. I'm gonna grab some crimps. And just in case anybody's wondering, we don't buy anything off AliExpress. We actually work with suppliers. We do get stuff from China, just like every other company that exists these days. But the difference is we work with a few suppliers that we trust to get quality parts, because before I started this company, I was just like you guys, looking at AliExpress. I'm like, oh, I can get a V6 hot end for, $6. And I bought them and I got them and they weren't at all what was described. Like, I would get ones that were supposed to be all metal. They were not all metal, or the thermistors didn't work half the time, and I was spending more and more money. And like the first V6 hot end clone I bought when I started out, it ended up costing me like $35 because I had to replace the fan, I had to replace the heat break, I had to replace the nozzle because it had like a crack and it was just oozing filament out the side. And it's just like I didn't want other people to go through that. So the stuff we sell, like the clones and stuff for the V6, we call our V6 clone the Tough Hot End. They're all inspected. We package all of them here. So we're not just getting them prepackaged from China and, rebadging them, just, throwing our label on them and sending them out. We actually prepackage all of our hot ends and everything. We make sure everything that goes through us gets inspected before it even goes out, which you're not going to get with a Chinese seller. They're just basically throwing everything in a bag and send it to you and hope that there's no major issues with it. And then they end up just refunding you typically half the time if you do have problems with it, but then you're still stuck at the original problem, which was you need a part and you still don't have said part. These little terminals are giving me a We'll run for my money today. And I am looking into trying to get a lot of the stuff that we sell made here in the US without driving the cost up a ton. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that, especially for stuff like the hot ends. But I'd like to get away from using like pretty much like a lot of the stuff that's from China. Not because of a quality issue, but because I'm tired of all the IP theft and everything that goes on. So, or we just do it like E3D did and open source everything, and then we don't have to worry about, you know, enforcing patents and everything. So, sorry this took a little longer. I just want to make sure these terminals were in. So I got the fans connected and his Easy ABL direct wire power reconnected to the new crimp terminals. And now we're going to put all this back in the box. Yeah, I help out with Marlon like a lot of other people do. But I also financially contribute to Scott's Patreon every month. And if there's like, let's say he has a part he needs to do some testing, or he just wants on for his machine, I told him, like, if you need anything, don't buy it. Message me. If we carry it, I'll send it out to you. All right. So let's get his little SD adapter hooked back up, which is this little guy. Before anyone asks, I'm assuming this is just from Thingiverse. I've seen it before in the CR-10 groups. All right. Kind of a pain, honestly, to get on here. Hopefully I can still get to the USB port with this thing on here. I'd assume so. It looks like I can. All right. Yeah, we do actually donate to Gina for Octoprint, and every Easy Pi that we sell. That's our plug and play Octoprint kit. So if you don't want to figure out how to set up Octoprint on your own, we have pre-set up kits. We donate to her every kit that's sold. We kind of worked out a little deal with her. It is an open source project, so we don't technically have to give anything to her. But I didn't want to be someone that's just leeching, because apparently there's a lot of other companies, when I was talking to her, that are selling Octoprint, and they don't contribute anything to her. Yeah, I don't, which I think is wrong. Like, it's like, okay, yes, it's free, it's open source, but come on, you're gonna make money off of someone else's project and not at least offer. Like, it'd be one thing if she declined, but I think you should be giving, you know, putting your money where your mouth is. You know, like, if Gina's project, which is Octoprint, helps out myself because I use it, and helps out my company because now we have a product that we can build around it, she deserves something. So I'd feel sleazy not doing it. So we got our box done. We're going to switch over to the firmware side of things. I want to make sure his SD reader is working. This does have a build on it with the LCD. If you have a 10S or a 10 LCD with a 10S, by default, it's not going to show the logo on here. This is doing it because I was doing a test build on this board. So I just want to make sure everything works. Let's say print from SD card. Yep, we're reading it. So his SD card's working. So that's good. At this point, what we want to do is get the firmware set up. So let me switch over to that screen, and then, yeah. Let me move that light back up. and we're going to get this hooked up to my computer. So let me find a mini USB cable, and I'm going to switch over to my monitor, which has OBS on it right now, so that's why we got this whole infinity thing going. All right, let me fix my screen share here. What happened was I changed my canvas size, and so thus it is now just going all haywire because it's all different sizes now. Let me add the YouTube chat back in. Where's the small cam? Main. All right, I want the YouTube chat. Copy. Paste. All right, we're gonna put you guys on the left here. All right. Brian, you can say negative stuff. It's when we have customers that are being, quite frankly, assholes, then they get banned. It's that simple. So, if you treat other people like you want to be treated, there's no issues. I personally try to make sure I take care of all my customers. It's when we get someone that's being just, you know, completely unreasonable and just wants to yell and scream that I don't deal with it. I tell them to send their products back, and then we're done dealing with them. So, you know, like we get people that yell and scream at us because of shipping issues, which we have no control over. Like their package was damaged or anything. Like delays in shipping, they yell and scream at us, and it's like, I wish I could do something, but I can't, and you yelling at me is not going to do anything. So, yeah. I've had to remove, I think, I want to say 3 people. One guy was just being verbally abusive to our support guy, Tor. He was calling him retarded and a bunch of other stuff I'm not going to say on stream. But, yeah, just don't be a dick. Like, it's that simple. We literally had to put something in our terms of service that basically says if you're, you know, being a terrible human being, we reserve the right to, you know, give you the option to send your stuff back and be done. So, you know, I don't deal with it. I don't got time to deal with somebody that's being difficult just for the sake of being difficult, especially when I'm trying to help them. So, all right, we're going to dive into the firmware here. So I'm going to go from start to finish. So we're going to open up a Google Chrome window here. Or actually, I'm going to use Firefox because that doesn't have all my personal stuff on it, and I don't need anything personal showing up on my stream. So we're going to go to th3dstudio.com, and actually, even easier, if you go to firmware.th3dstudio.com, then you're going to get our page here. And we had to put a disclaimer here because we had people that were trying to claim software burned up their MOSFET on their printer. So this basically says if you break anything, it's not our fault. So I'm going to hit I agree. And we're going to download the firmware here. It's just going to give you a zip file. I'm actually going to cancel that download because I realize it's going to go over the LTE, which is going to cause drop packets. And the stream is going to go to hell. I have the file on my local computer here, so I'm going to open the latest one. So I have Unified Firmware version J here, which is the latest. I'm just going to extract this. I'm going to call it D live stream, just so I know. And I'm going to extract everything. So I'm extracting the files here. While that's going, I'm going to clean up all my little pieces here. Guess I can't find my garbage, so they're going to go in the little tray for now. So what I'm extracting not only contains the firmware, but it also contains the Arduino flashing tool, STL files for the EasyABL, just a bunch of stuff. So it's a fairly large package. If you don't want to get the full package, you can download just the firmware from our GitHub, which is linked on the page. It's just a big package. That's why it's taking a little while. So I have the folder here. I'm going to move this over here. So this is where our firmware is. I'm sorry if this is small. I'll make sure that once we're in the Arduino, it will be fast. Or large, I should say. All right. We should be done extracting any second now. I should have just extracted this before. It's mainly all the little files in the Arduino portable IDE that's in here. They just take forever to extract. All right, we're all extracted. So if you're on Windows, there's a batch file here called open firmware windows.bat. You just double click it and it's going to load up the IDE. It is loading on my main screen right now. So I can't exactly show you it just yet. It's firing up, it's starting, and we should have it open any second here. All right, so we've got our, I'm gonna zoom in here. So we've got our firmware here, and the first thing you're gonna wanna go to is go to configuration.h at the top, and we're gonna scroll down and we're gonna configure options. So we have a CR-10. I just realized chat is over. Let me shuffle around some things here. Chat is over the configuration options. All right, there we go. So we're going to go down, and since we're doing a CR-10S, so now this printer is technically a CR-10S, and it's got an S board. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the 2 slashes in front of hashtag define CR-10S. We are going to do the same for the CR-10 LCD CR-10S option. This is what I was talking about with switching the plug around. He has the easy out, so we're going to enable that as well. And he has the easy ABL with the OEM mount. So at that point, the firmware is all set up. I'm going to go down and just configure a few other options that I like. So we're going to do a 3x3 grid. Tom, if you want to change any of this when you get back, you can. And I'm going to go ahead and set the probe edge to 45, and then his should be able to handle the fast probe, which we'll test. That just runs the probing a little faster. And then all these other settings, he doesn't have a V6 hot end on there. We don't need to change any of these other options here. These are just extra options. And then here, let's do this here. I'm gonna do this. See. Apparently I triggered my echo. Alexa, stop. There we go. We're going to call this Tom's CR10 Dual. All right. So at this point, we're ready to upload the firmware, which means I have to grab a mini USB plug to put into here. Hopefully, it'll fit in this little housing here. Of course, every cable I grab it first. Every cable I grab it first was not a mini USB. It was a full size. All right. Hopefully this will fit in here. That's what she said. Oh, we're so close. Ah, there we go. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and select my COM port. So this board should be showing up on here. All right, COM4. Make sure my 2560 is selected for processor. It is. So let's go ahead and upload this to the board. So it's going to take a sec to compile. So if you guys got any questions, now's the time to ask. I'll move my head out of the way here. So you can see it says compiling sketch right now. So it's going to compile and upload to the board. So yeah, what's everyone been up to? What have you guys been printing? Curious to hear if you guys got any cool projects going on. Yeah, I see you guys talking about the bug fix. The bug fix has bugs. One of the main ones being there's random step loss, which I'm even having trouble trying to pinpoint. I have a machine that does it, but even Scott's having a hard time hunting it down. It's a really weird bug, and they're trying to figure out what they changed that caused it. There is no written documentation. This is very much a DIY. We're just supplying the parts. I wanted to do this live stream so at least someone could go and see what's involved. I mean, essentially, it's pretty simple. You're going to swap the board like we did. There's plenty of videos on YouTube on swapping the board. If you search CR-10 board replacement or board swap, Tiny Machines has some good videos on it. Swap the board, configure the firmware like we just did. And then upload to the board and then connect your stuff. So I'll show you how to physically mount everything in a second here. I realized I forgot to uncomment this line here. So you see here, when we're doing the dual, you've got three options. You've got the single hot end Y adapter, which is what we're going with. You got dual hot ends, which we sell. You can also use the E3D Chimera. Dual hot and dual nozzles would be that. And then there's a dual hot end single nozzle. So that's not a Y adapter, but it's two inputs on a mixing block. So the filament goes in to the block of the cold end heatsink, and then they mix in the actual Cyclops style block. So this is uploaded. I see it says Tom's dual CR10 dual ready. I have to uncomment this option here and then re-upload to the board because that's going to tell it that there's dual extruders. Yeah, I did notice that that they have the fans connected to the bed output, which is really weird because your bed's pulsing on and off, which means your fans aren't going to run. I don't know why they did that. The wires that you added length to and connected, I was just extending the always-on fan wires to make it easier for me to work inside the box. That's the only reason. You don't have to do that. You can just put those two wires in with the power input that goes into the main board. So this is uploading to the board again. It should be done in a sec here. And then we'll have the dual extruder support. We're still uploading. Oh, what's up, Khalil? I thought that name looked familiar. We're still waiting on the board upload, by the way. It's almost done. Usually it doesn't take this long, unless I'm just... Oh, there we go. Okay, so we're done uploading to the board. All right, so right now firmware is done. We're going to move on to the physical hardware. So I'm going to disconnect this from my computer. And we're going to switch back over here. Small camera is just hanging out. All right, so the hardware, back to the rest of the hardware portion. So we already swapped the board. We looked at doing a CR10 board with changeable drivers. It was not going to be cost effective in the slightest. That's why we didn't move forward with that project. We weren't going to be able to produce it at a cost effective price, which is why we went through Creality to get these custom made. All right. So, oh, I just realized there's a random USB cable sitting here. I'm not sure why. It's probably one of mine. It looks like one of mine. All right. So what we're going to do here is install our second E-motor. And how we're going to do that is with this dual bracket. You can download it from our site. You should print it off in PETG, not PLA, because these motors do get warm and it will warp. Tom, we'll have to figure out another way to mount this, but I will give you another sensor for your easy out. Now, if you have the filament sensor and you have dual filament, you want to put it on the Extruder 1, your main one. Now, as of this time, I do not have a way to run dual filament sensors on these printers. So it is in the works in Marlin, so it might be supported in the future, but right now your filament sensor is going to work only on your first extruder. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cut, he's got some zip ties here holding the Bowden tube and the Easy ABL sensor on here, so I'm going to go ahead and take these off, and we'll put new ones on. The main difference between the Creality board and the MKS is the MKS is not plug and play, or even anywhere close to plug and play as this would be. And then you're going to be having to customize and cut up the control box to fit that board in. All right, so I'm going to dismount his stock extruder here, which we have to do anyways to put this bracket on. So I've got the bracket right here with its mounting nut. Now, he changed out his stepper motor for some reason. He said he was having issues with it, so my bracket's going to fit a little tight on his. You guys will not have this issue. I wasn't aware of that when I got the machine from him, but he said that he swapped it out at one point because he's having problems with it. So, but we'll make it work. I haven't tried that. We could play around with a parallel or series idea. The board itself does have extra outputs, so physically speaking, it has everything you need to hook it up. It's just in the firmware itself, it's not supported yet. So, and I know the Marlin Beta has dual filament support. I've modified my 118 on one of my machines here for it to work with dual, but I haven't fully got it 100% working because it when it triggers on the second one, it will back out the first one. But I haven't spent the time to like fix the code. So I'm taking his stock extruder off, which is the little plastic one. I'm setting all his parts aside because those will go back with him. And what I meant by his extruder motor is a little weird is it's got these little edges on here. They're going to catch on this bracket, but we'll make it work. You guys, if you have your standard Creality motors, which most people do, you won't have any problems. So to put this adapter on, I'm going to put the actual Creality one we supply on here. So this was going to be our E1, and then our second motor, or sorry, E0, and then our second motor. Like I said, his motor's going to be a tight fit. I almost want to swap this motor out, because this is not the Creality stock motor, which is why it's not fitting with this bracket. This bracket is designed for the stock motor. I might be able to try to see how I can make this work with this. Unless I just grab one of my... I don't know if I have a stock Creality motor laying around. Not quite sure. Yeah, because this isn't fitting on here. I'm trying to think of which printer I could rob a motor off of. This, you screwed up my plans here, Tom. I don't know if I could Dremel. No, I'm gonna have to Dremel out off a lot of this to get this to work. That'd be a pain. So ideally, you see how this one fits in here. This is an actual Creality motor. This is what this was designed for. Oh yeah, I could swap off his X. That would work. Yeah, I'm just gonna swap the X motor. There we go. Problem solved. All right, so I'm gonna take his gear off here. And all right, let's take this apart. Of course, he's got the stepper dampeners on here, which is gonna just make it even harder to get off. Did you use Phillips on the inside here? Or if I can fit my bit through here. Oh, all right. Not gonna be as bad as I thought. I can fit my screwdriver through here. Ah, there we go. Okay. Excellent. Thank you, chat. I don't know why I didn't think of that earlier. Swap the X. There we go. That'll do. That'll do, Donkey. That'll do. All right. Should have mounted the belt before I put that in. There we go. All right, so now we got the motor straightened out here. Just need to get these screws tightened down though. My bit just barely fits through the holes here. It wouldn't be a live stream if we didn't have some random weird one-off issue. I think Tom's just trying to keep me on my toes. All right, there we go. So, motor issue solved. All right. So, as you can see now, this motor will fit in here just like it's supposed to. Bam! There we go. That's how it's supposed to work. My keyboard off? It must be off. There we go. Someone said lull and it got held for review for some reason. Anyway, so once you got the motors in here, you can put the 50mm bolt through. Okay, so it goes through there. And then there's a nut on here. This is going to clamp them down. So when you put this on, you want to kind of hold it all together, put some pressure on it so it's got something to bite into. Tighten down the nut. And then you're going to tighten down the screw on the other side. This is going to hold these motors. You don't need to Hulk it either. You just want to do it tight. Okay? So now our motors aren't moving. So this one shifted a little. Let me just go ahead and push this together more. And I'm going to tighten it down a little bit more with a larger screwdriver. But in reality, it doesn't really matter if it shifts a tiny bit because it's not going to affect anything. They're not going anywhere. All right, so we got our motors, 1 and 2. Doesn't really matter which one you use, but we got 2 motors here, and then one of these is going to bolt back to here. So the one motor is going to hold up the other one, and this is printed in ABS, so this is going to be good in terms of rigidity and it not melting. So we got our new extruders here. Let me move my cam over so you guys can see what we're doing here. So here's our stock extruder mounting location. I'm going to go ahead and assemble our new extruder. This is the aluminum extruder we sell on the TH3D site. You get a bag of parts like this. The bearing goes in like so. And one side's threaded, one side's not. Oh. You want to get the screw through the center here. And then you want to snug it. You don't want to over tighten it. Assuming it's this bolt. No, next size up. There we go. All right, so you want to move the bearing and tighten it down until you feel it start to like catch on the arm, and then back it off a little. So you want this to move smooth, moving smooth, so we're good. And then we're gonna go ahead and put the fitting in. So this is the fitting for your PTFE tube. This gets screwed in like so. And then I like to just take it and tighten it up. All right. So you got one little screw here. This goes through this one here. And this is the first one we're going to put in. I'll show you guys that here in a second once I get my screwdriver situated. All right, so you want to put this on like this. You got your first screw here. This is the little recessed one, and this is going to grab onto your first motor. So I angled both my plugs out this way, and then I'm just going to screw this one motor in like that. And just line it up and tighten it down. So now you can see how this bracket works. It just puts this motor off the back here, just like that. Really simple. And then we're going to put the steel gear on the extruder here. And I'm not going to tighten this just yet. I want to make sure this lines up because you want to have the arm and the feeder gear lined up, and you don't want the set screw on the feeder gear to be riding on the nut, the bearing. Can't talk tonight. Gotta make sure I have the right right. So I'm putting, so you guys see, I'm putting the feeder gear on and I'm tightening it up. The set screw is going on the actual slanted portion of the shaft. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the aluminum sleeve in. There's a black sleeve that goes in this. You can see here. Goes in the arm. It's like a bushing. And then you've got 3 M3x20 screws. One goes in here in the actual bushing. Need to swap out for a different size bit for this one. And then we're going to put this extruder arm on. And this is going to go through the bracket into your motor down below. And it looks like I don't have something lined up perfectly here. Oh, gonna go in. Oh, there we go. All right, we're going in. All right, so, and that you want to tighten up because it's going to tighten up on the bushing. And then you're going to have 2 screws here. That will hold this bracket to the motor. Now, this screw did not go in as far as I wanted. Let me see, let me see if the slightly shorter one that came with his stock extruder will work. Yeah, so the stock extruder came with a slightly shorter M3, so I'm going to use that one on the arm. No, maybe I'm just stupid. I thought I used all the ones that came with this extruder when I put one on my Ender 2 here. Alright. Yeah, I'm just being stupid apparently. I'll have to figure out what's going on with that. Unless I got sent the wrong screw in this one kit. No, that's the right one. Anyways, I'll figure it out. So we've got 2 M4 screws here. The longer one goes in the top, and the shorter one goes in the bottom. And what these are going to do is hold the spring in. So you got a black spring. This is going to go in. You put it on the one screw, and then you put the screw all the way in once you get it there, and then the other screw goes through and holds it. We're just screwing these in. And these will make sure the spring doesn't move. I think I need the next step up in terms of bits to screw these in. Yes, I do. Alright. So there we go. That's on there. And now we got to install the second one. So same procedure, except you're going to take the little spacer that comes with this kit and put this on top of the motor. So we don't need that on this one because it's got the metal bracket. But because it doesn't have the metal bracket, you use the spacer in between it. Alright, so again, repeat the same process. You put the little screw through. Here's my Phillips, here it is. Put the little screw through, and this will be our first one to go in. It goes through the spacer. And then into the motor. Alright. Put the 2 M3 screws in here, which might help if I use the right type of bit. Hex is not, or Phillips is not going to work on a Allen key. All right. All right. Let's put the idler arm together. Again, make sure you don't over tighten it. All right. We're moving smoothly. Put the aluminum spacer in, or the bushing, and the M3 screw through it. Put that on. Actually, I'm going to put the, before I tighten all that on, I'm going to put the steel feeder gear on, line it up. And we're going to want to tighten it down. All right. Go ahead and tighten this up. All right. My PTFE fitting in here. Now, this is because I loosened this up. I'm gonna retighten this down. I probably should have done that before I put all this. Probably should have put all this on here and then tighten it down, because me screwing with it just loosened it up. You could also put electrical tape around the motor if you want something that bites in a little harder. I'm just putting the screws in for the arm here, for the spring. Put the spring in now. Oh, these are always a pain to get lined up. I'm always afraid of them like flying out and like hitting me in the face. I've had that happen. Getting these springs all lined up on these extruders. No, I don't think it would have caused Z wobble. I'm being very rough with this, so I don't think there would be an issue. I'm gonna go ahead and find my like actual Phillips screwdriver instead of this tiny one, which is right here, and I'm gonna tighten up this bracket again. It's hard to, I need like a third hand here almost. All right. There we go. Both the motors are on. Both the extruders are on. So we got one extruder here. We got another extruder here. So we got dual extruders here. Feed our filament in here. Now, if you want to use PTFE to guide it, there are just second fittings that come with this. So you can put a fitting here and pop a piece of PTFE in here. This actually isn't PETG. This is ABS. So this is going to be perfectly fine for the heat. I've have stepper motors mounted with ABS parts on my enclosed machines, and there's no issues with them. All right, so we've got the extruders installed. We need to get the hot end all set up now. So what we need to do is get the tubing run from here to the 2-in-1 adapter, and then assemble said 2-in-1 adapter. So let's pull this down here, and I'll show you guys how that looks. So here's a 2-in-1 adapter. And there's a bunch of parts that come in it. So you got these little clips here. These are to prevent your fittings from flexing and moving. So these would go, they're like little collar pieces. And then you've got the little brass fittings here. And these teeny tiny little screws. So basically, since we're doing the 2-in-1, we're going to assemble this here. And you've got these little collars here. These are for these PTFE fittings. And if I'm correct, they go like so. Might actually have to look this up. It's been a little while since I put one of these together, and I'll make sure I do it right. Because I know these brass pieces go in here, and then basically the tubing goes into here, and you can see the channels it has. So let me do this. I'm gonna take a quick break here. I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna get some tubing. So you guys take, we're gonna take 5, and then we'll be back, okay? All right, we are back. All right, so I got 1 meter of tough tube here, about 1 meter. I just went and cut this real quick. The 2-in-1 adapter comes with a little length of tough tube. Now, the reason you want, especially if you have a 2-in-1 like this, you want the tighter tolerance. So when you do a retract, the filament gets pulled up into here and squished back down to 1.9 so it doesn't clog. Because if you have regular PTFE between the hot end and the adapter, when it pulls it back, it's going to be 2 millimeters so it can get jammed. So that's why you need the tighter tolerance. That's why this little length of the tough tube is included with the 2-in-1 adapter. I'm going to switch back to the small cam here so you guys see what I'm doing. So on these little brass inserts here, there's a tapered edge and a flat edge. The flat edge goes out. So we're going to put the little black piece here into the brass collar here, like that. And we're going to do this for all three. All right, so there we go. This one is included. This will actually thread into the top of the stock CR-10 hot end, and it will sit right on top of the block. I don't prefer to use this because it's a little more clunky. I'd rather have the Y adapter just kind of hanging out there. Let me see here, because I actually haven't. I have the Y adapter on my custom i3, and I have it above the hot end, but actually it might be more advantageous of us to actually put it on the hot end with this included adapter just to get a nice clean install. Let me see if this is going to fit here. I don't think it will. No, it won't. So we're going to have to do the other one because it's going to hit the Easy ABL bracket. So not a big deal. We'll just continue assembling this. There we go. We got our 3 pieces, and we're going to put these brass collars in the piece here that has the channels. So like that, we got all 3 pieces. We're going to go ahead and put that top on. So it locks all these in. So now we got our 3 fittings here where we got our output and our 2 inputs here. So I'm going to go ahead and put these little screws in that come with it. And there's a slightly larger screw, which is this one here, that goes in the center to clamp it down. So we're going to go ahead and put these in. I think this screwdriver is small enough. Yes, it is. Maybe not. Let me use a smaller one so I don't strip this out. And I just dropped a screw. Great. I think it was an extra, so we're good. Yeah, they gave us they gave us 5. So lucky me, I don't have to go hunting for it on stream right now. All right. So we're going to go ahead and assemble this Y adapter here. We're going to put the 4 screws in and then the center one. Now, I probably could knock this out in about an hour if I wasn't streaming and talking. But I figured you guys might want to see how this all goes together. All right, all of our brass fittings are in there nice. Nothing got tilted or slanted. And this is an injection molded part. This is not a 3D printed part. I have used 3D printed ones. They do not work as well as injection molded ones. This is a brand. This is from a company called D-Force. And that's one of my suppliers can get them. These are from China. There is one from a company called Simi CNC. They have a similar product. And I've used that one before, and it's all right. I like how this one goes together a little bit better. It's a little nicer, a little more robust, but they both work. It's just it's a Y adapter is essentially what it is. Trying to get this to grab the nut in here. I wonder if I grabbed the wrong screw. Maybe the one that fell was the was the correct screw for this, because this is a little too. This one's a little loose in the nut here. Let me find that screw in a sec. Let me try it again and see here. I don't know if that nut's in the case all the way. Now I think I dropped the screw I needed, so I do have to find it. It's a slightly longer one. Well, I can't find the screw, but I have my box of miscellaneous screws. So this looks like an M3. So let's see what I got here. Interesting. It's not an M3. It's slightly smaller. Is this an Imperial? That'd be really weird if they included an Imperial screw for the one screw. That's really odd. That's gonna stink if I have to find that one screw. See if... Oh, there we go. Alright. The nut had a slight tapered edge on the one side, and once I flipped it over, it bit in. So, we got the center screw in, we got the 4 outer screws in, so this is assembled. The next thing we need to do is figure out how we're going to put this on the machine. So, we've got our 2 extruders here. We got our main one, which is the original one. And then we got our one we added. Now, since this has the PTFE in the melt zone, what we're going to want to do is heat this up and change the PTFE with the nozzle heated, because the reason you want to do that is since the PTFE is in the melt zone, if the PTFE is in the melt zone, then what's going to happen is you're going to get filament jammed up in there if you try to pull it out while it's cold. So always swap your tubing that's in the melt zone with the nozzle hot. So I'm just going to go here. I'm going to tell the printer prepare. And I'm going to just preheat PLA. And I'm going to heat just the hot end. Pull the hot end to heat. He's heating up. So we're going to let this heat up. And then I'm going to put this small length of the tubing in here. And then we'll proceed with the installation. Let me see what's going on here. All right, Neuro says, or heat issues. Oh no, I think I said the bracket, these are ABS. These will be fine for the stepper heat. In terms of this affecting your Z moves so slow, even if this is not perfectly tight, it's not going to affect anything. It's not moving fast or rapidly. So this does not matter if this is super tight. As long as this is not going anywhere, like, this is not going anywhere. So we're fine here. Even though this is a little, like I said, it's a little loose, it's just made to grab around the motor and keep this from going. So you're going to be fine. Let's see. Nigel C, are my hardware products open source? Some of the stuff we sell is, because it's actually based on open source design, like the Tough Extruder, the Tough Hot End. Those are all based on open source designs that E3D puts out. They're not E3D products. They're based on the E3D designs. They're open hardware, so anybody can make them. The Easy ABL is not open, mainly because I didn't want to deal with China copying it and mass producing it, but it happened anyways. So a lot of good that did me. That's the main reason I wouldn't want to open source the boards, is because not from people, but Chinese companies. All right, my nozzle is at 196, so I'm gonna go ahead and take the tubing out. All right. Tubing looks like it's in decent condition, but this is interesting. The hole on this Capricorn is really, really big compared to this. So this was in the melt zone, and this was feeding into the extruder. It's really stretched out. That's interesting. Huh. All right, so I'm gonna put the piece of tough tube down in here, and I like to straighten it out so it's as straight as possible. And these are cut already, so they have a nice flat end on them. You want your PTFE to have a nice flat end before you put it into the nozzle. So, and the reason you want that is because you want it to sit flush up against your nozzle once it goes on. So I'm going to push this in firmly. Might help if I lock the Z motors, but we want this down in firmly. So that's not moving. It's bit into the fitting. So that's good. I'm going to go ahead and cool this down because we no longer need it heated. All right, so that's going to cool down. So we got our PTFE here. This is going to go onto this end of the Y adapter. Now, I'm going to leave this the same length, and you're going to push this in, and you'll feel it bite in. So I can't pull this out, but what you're going to do now is take the little clip that comes with it and put it between the collar and the adapter. And this is going to make it so that tube does not move. And just push them in gently, and then you're going to want to push the tubing in a little bit more just to make sure you're getting it all the way in there. So this is now not moving at all. So now we got our 2-in-1 here, and we're going to want to cut the lengths. So I'm going to put my tough tube here in the end. And again, just make sure it's in. If you hold the little collar here, you'll feel it go in, and it's not going to move. That's what you want. And then put the little plastic clip in. All right. So now you want to have this so you don't want it completely tight, okay? You want to have this all free flowing because remember, we're going to secure our wires to the Bowden tube just like it is on the factory. So you want to kind of get an idea of how this is going to flow. I usually move my extruder to the max position so I know once I secure everything that I've given it enough travel distance, if that makes sense. So you can go here, and you don't need a ton of tubing. 1 meter is all you need. And we're going to go ahead and cut this right here. And always use a PTFE cutter. If you don't have one, you can use a razor blade. But a PTFE cutter is cheap, and it gives you a nice clean cut. So we got that into our first extruder. And just let's see how this works. I'm going to kind of hold this there and get a feel. Everything should have enough distance to move. May have cut this one a little too short, so let me just redo that one. We'll go a little longer. Luckily, I've got a lot of tubing here. So I'll cut this just a little bit longer and reinsert. Justin, what's the difference between tough tube and Capricorn? Tough tube is just an alternative. It's just another high tolerance, high temp tubing. They're very similar, and that's about it. It's just an alternative to Capricorn. Now this one's going to be a little bit longer just because it's got a slightly longer offset on the back. And again, put your tubing in, and then put the little C-clip on the adapter. And I cut this right about here. I'm going to cut a little long just in case. See how this fits. Okay, that's not too bad. There we go. Be a little bit shorter on this one. All right. So now we got our hot end's all connected here. Our extruder is connected to our hot end. Let me find some zip ties, which I think I have right here. Yep. And let's get this all secured and looking pretty. So when you guys are zip tying your stuff, a lot of people like to really wrench it down. Do not do that. You just need it snug. So I like to, especially when you have an easy AVL sensor, I like to leave a little extra slack here in the sensor so you're not straining this wire. I don't know if this is like a burn mark on your wire or something, Tom. Did you like hit it with a soldering iron or something? Anyways, I'm just going to make this look nice now. Do some cable management here, and you're going to use the Bowden tube to route your cables, which is what I like about these printers, is you can use the Bowden tube to manage your cables. And again, do not over tighten your zip ties. Okay, do not over tighten them. You're going to crimp the tubing, you'll crimp your wires. You just want them snug enough that things don't go all crazy when you move it. Route the wires right between the two extruders here. And I'm going to have this follow the first extruder. All right. So there we go. Just check to make sure our motion's good. Everything's moving nice. See how it kind of follows the natural curve of the tube? That's what you want. So all the way over from left to right, we're able to travel the entire length of the bed with no issues. So this is all good. All right, let me turn this off. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to move this small camera out of the way, and we're going to connect the printer, because at this point we're done. We just got to hook up all the motors. That's it. Yeah, it's that simple. So everything's installed now. We got our extruder 0, or our first one, and then our additional extruder here. And then yeah, we'll do a test print here. I got to find a dual color print. But this is the extent of the install. You're basically just adding a second motor with a 2-in-1. It's super easy. You're not going to have to run any additional wires. If you had a dual hot end, the additional step would be obviously mounting the new hot end, and then you're going to run an extra thermistor and heater wire back to the control box. So it's that simple. We're using the same stock Creality hot end. Nothing special there. It'll work with any Bowden style hot end. Let me just get this all organized here and get it ready to do a print. So many wires here, Tom. All right. Got our X, Y, X, and E. So our first extruder, hopefully you guys can hear me. Our first extruder is getting hooked up, which is the one in the original position. Connect our X end stop, and grab our new E motor cable and connect that up. Go to the rear motor here. And get our Y situated here. And for now, I'm just going to stick some filament in his filament sensor. Because the cover he printed will not fit on here. But I am going to give him a different sensor and send him home with this other one. So all right. Where'd my end go? All right. So I just need something to stick in here to not trigger the sensor. All right. So now I just realized I don't have a second spool mount here, which is something I should probably figure out and then post online. Help out other people too. So I'm just going to stick this up here, run this into the first extruder. And then we're going to do a test to make sure both E motors work. So feeding this all the way through to the hot end. I'm going to heat the hot end. All right. Just verifying that all functions are working here. All right, bed's heated, nozzle's heated, that's good. Bed takes an awful long time to heat though. I'm actually not even going to bother heating the bed, it's going to take too long. Alright, so my nozzle's now at 144. I'm going to put this by here, by the printer here, so you guys can see. Let me level this gantry out and move the Z up. There are pre-configured slicing profiles or slicer profiles on our site, Patrick. All right, I'm going to tell the first extruder, so I'm going to go to move axis, extruder 1, and I'm going to tell it to go 100 here, or 10, I should say. I'm wondering if these, let me see if the X, I might have to change the wiring up since we switched the motors. Let me move the X. It's going to do X is not moving. Okay, so these must have different. Since we swapped the X and the E, I'm thinking these have different pinouts on the steppers here. Because this one's got a twist in it. This one does not. It looks like Tom changed them. Tom, did you change your stepper? Did you change your stepper wiring to accommodate this motor you said you swapped out? It looks like you did. I can swap it, which is why it wasn't turning. Where's my flatheads? I don't know if Tom is still in the chat or not. So the Creality motors are interesting because they have their two center pins swapped for the coils, which is problematic when you go to change the stepper. I don't know why they do this, but so basically when I took his E, which is not an original Creality, and put on his X, the motor won't move the right way because he had swapped the pins around. So I got to do the same thing on X and then undo the swap on the E because it now has a Creality motor on it. I am switching those right now. This should fix the issue then. If you guys have standard motors, you're not going to encounter this problem. This is just, Tom didn't give me a heads up that he swapped motors on this. Alright, let's try that again. Alright, I'm going to heat the nozzle because cold extrusion prevention will not let the extruders move unless the nozzle is above 120. Alright, let me try move access. Let's see if home X repair. Tried to move. I'm thinking that stepper has way different wiring than the stock. So I'll have to figure that out. Let me see if the E is working. It is, yeah, he repinned the whole cable. Alright. Yeah, these are all swapped, that's why. Okay. Oh, fun, fun, fun. Looks like he swapped the two outers. And the center. Alright, so this should get our E going in the right direction. Check that, and then we'll come back to the X. Because the X and E stock on a Creality are the same motors. There's no reason it shouldn't work. Alright, we're preheating the end. Let me move the axis. 1, 10. Oh, we're moving. All right, that's good. Feed it in. Oh, we got, there we go. Okay, so E's good now. All right, I'm gonna go to Extruder 2. I just want to see if this one moves. It's gonna take a sec because it's still processing the commands. This one's the first extruder is still moving. So until that move command is done that I queued up, the second one's not gonna start moving yet. All right, second one's moving the right direction. So E0 and E1 are working. Now I just have to sort out his wiring on the X here. So looking at what he had here, I need to basically swap the 2 center pins and swap the 2 outer pins, and we should be good. I just want to make sure, see what it moves. Because basically I want to make sure everything's moving the direction the stock firmware set up, so that way if he updates, he doesn't have to do anything different. Okay, Y homes, let's see what X does. X just moves. Yeah. So, hey, check that wiring. Actually, I've got an X stepper cable here. I can compare it to that and then reverse it. So I can figure out the stock wiring. Yeah, they're completely flipped. So so what I'm talking about is, so here's the original one. Here's the other, the dotted line is on the outside. So I basically got to flip all these. I should just be able to flip the 2 outers. I think we'll be good. Oh, the joys of stepper motor wiring. I should have just grabbed a motor off of one of my machines. This would have been a million times easier. I'm surprised you had to replace a stepper, because steppers aren't usually something that goes out. Oh, wrong end. All right. All right, let's see if X moves now. No, it's just like shutting off. Really weird. I need to check the M119. Maybe the end stop isn't hooked up. I was gonna say, rarely do stepper motors go bad. Rarely. There's not much to them. I apologize, everybody. I didn't expect to have these weirdnesses on this machine. I thought this was just a I saw the motor, but I thought that was just a slightly different motor that Creality decided to use. I didn't realize he had swapped it. All right. I'm just doing an M119. I'm checking my end stop set statuses. X is triggered. Filament's triggered. Oh, I feel stupid. The X and Z are swapped in the control box. Somehow I fudged that up. Okay, so the motor wiring's correct. I'm just apparently special. That would do it. So we get to open the control box up. All right. Well, let me show you guys here. I'll fix this issue with his with the wiring. I just want to show you guys how this works. So we'll have two colors here. I got some silver PLA that I'm going to feed in. And I'm going to do a manual retract here. So I'm going to feed this other PLA in on the second extruder. Just up until I feel it hit the Y adapter. So I feel it hit the Y adapter. I'm going to back it off a little. And it might help if I hooked up the hot end. Alright, there we go. So what I'll show you here is I'm going to heat the nozzle. Yeah, I gotta swap the X and the Z. I somehow swapped that when I was in there and didn't notice. That's on me. I couldn't figure out why I kept stopping and why the Z was showing triggered when the ABL wasn't showing anything. Basically, what I'm going to show you is here. I'm going to move the E1. So I'm going on my LCD here, and you guys can see as I'm running out of cord. So I'm going to move access extruder 1, and I'm going to move that, and you're going to see blue come out. Might help if I hooked up the E1. Do not hot plug your steppers. Always go disable steppers so it shuts the stepper driver off before you plug it in, or just shut off the power. So, alright, I have extruder 1 hooked up. I'm going to move it 1. I accidentally changed his E1 wiring. Good. Man, I am just striking out today. Need to have the wires match. Yeah, I must have grabbed the E when I was switching cables. Today is not my night. At least the internet's working. So I got that going for me. The motor threw me for a loop, man. Alright, prepare, move axis, extruder 1. Swear to God, if this goes backwards direction, I have to reverse all the wires. Oh, no, we're good. Okay. There is a God. Alright, so we should start seeing the blue come out here. Let me change the focus on this camera. You guys can actually see that. Alright, there we go. So we got the blue coming out. I'm going to push out a little more. So in your slicer, when you do a tool change, what's going to happen is you'll just tell it to retract past the Y adapter and then feed in the next filament. So essentially, I'm gonna emulate that once it stops feeding. Still going. It takes its sweet time. I'm gonna back out. I'm gonna go to Extruder 2 because then we're gonna purge the nozzle with the silver. Okay, so E1 stop moving. So I'm gonna pull this back. And we're past the Y adapter now, and I'm going to feed in the silver here. So now I feel it going, it's past the Y, and I'm going to tell E2 to move, and E2 is not hooked up. Hang on. Oh. Shut that off, hook up E2. Turn it back on. I'm sorry I'm not on my ball today, guys. Alright, Extruder 2, we're going to move that. And it's going. Alright, so you guys should start seeing the silver come out. We still got blue coming out. Very light blue. If I could like zoom in on this somehow, let's see. Got some digital zoom. About it. Can't really do much with it. Alright, now we're starting to get silver out of here. I'm going to grab a different color that's vastly different from this light blue. Probably not the best one to show it. There we go, got some bright orange for you. So again, we're going to emulate a tool change. This is too big to fit. This hole is too small to fit on your spool holder. I always have a hard time getting in the hole. There we go. Alright, so I'm pushing it up. I'm in the Y adapter. So let's say we want to change color. So you're printing, okay. And then you retract past the Y. New color comes in then. We're going to the hot end now. There we go. See our orange coming out? That's all you're doing. There's nothing magical. You just got two motors, and on your tool change, you retract and then push the other one in. And then to purge out the color, what you do is you run a purge block. So we went from the silver to the orange here, you can see the transition from silver to orange. So silver to orange out of the same hot end. There are pre-set up slicer profiles for S3D, and there's information for Kira. There's videos that other people have put together. We're basically just providing the hardware to make this happen. So once you have everything on here, and I'm going to move the extruder one so you can see the filament coming out. But it's a really simple setup. It's just basically feed one filament in, and then when you're done with it, retract and push it out. So you can see the orange there, which is on our first extruder, and then we've got silver on the second. So it's that simple. Once you have the hardware done, the other part is just tuning your firmware, or not your firmware, sorry, tuning your slicer to do the changes. So when you tell it to change tool heads, you're going to want to have it retract past the Y adapter, push the next color in, and then go to the purge block and flush your old color out. So again, that would be, if you guys can see back here, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to act like I'm doing a retract. So retract past the Y, and then I'm going to push the gray in, or the silver. Okay, now we're in the nozzle, and you see we've got the filament coming out here, and I'm going to go to extruder 2, and we're going to push this out here. So I'm telling extruder 2 to feed in, and you'll start seeing a transition to silver. Just like that. So there you go. This is all set up now. Physically, we got all the wiring done. I just got to fix his X and Z end stop. They're swapped right now because somehow I mixed them up. But this is ready to dual extrusion now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix the X and Z being switched issue. And then I'm going to go ahead and do some test prints on it tomorrow. And maybe do another stream tomorrow. Would you guys want to see it actually printing? I mean, we've got right now all the hardware's done. We got our second extruder mounted. We've got the Y adapter in place. Both motors are working. So, you know, it's relatively simple. So the hardest part is just getting everything on and wired up, and if you have aftermarket stepper motors, it it makes it a little more complicated. So, but it doesn't look bad. It's a nice clean install. We didn't even change the hot end here, as you can see. You know, we've just got the Y adapter going here, going back to the extruders, and we got our two extruders just hanging out back here. They're like best buds. So that's about it. The install's done. This would have taken a lot less time if I didn't have to mess with the motors. But you know, in terms, like I said, these brackets work great. There is a little bit of play on them, but you're not going to be doing anything. The Z moving up and down isn't going to make these shift. They're perfectly fine. The motors aren't going anywhere. So, does anybody have any questions on this? I know this was kind of all over the place because of the motors. And me flipping the end stop connections inside. Does anybody have any questions for me before we wrap up the stream here? I'm just putting all my bits away here. Rob's extension, you mean recommendations for the dual? Is that what you're asking? Like, you want to extend the second extruder motor if you go to the dual? I think that's what you're asking. I don't have a source for the extension. This is just a 4-pin wire. This is a stepper motor cable. It's 4-pin wire. If you literally want to take this, cut it in the center, add in, I want to say this is like 22 gauge wire, maybe 20. If you look on Amazon, you can find like RGB cable. It's just wire with that looks like this, except it's RGB, and there's a black wire. You can use that to extend this cable. That's what I would do if I was in that situation where I needed the second extruder extended. I could ask if they can get us just if they can get us just the extenders, but I don't know how cost prohibitive that's going to be. Whether we have to buy the whole sets, which I don't think people are going to want to buy a whole second set. I would just personally extend it. I mean, especially if you're going dual hot ends, you're going to feed the extra wires out of the grommet for the thermistor and the hot end. And then, I mean, this includes you get two stepper cables essentially. So you could somehow fashion that up, but there's different connectors. One's a JST XH and the other one's a JST PH on the other end. But I would just extend them yourself, bust out your soldering iron, you know, make the wires longer. If you want the second hot end and thermistor on a quick disconnect, I would use like an XT60 for the hot end itself for the heater. And then just use like DuPonts for the thermistors or a JST connector. Thermistor doesn't need anything heavy gauge, but I would use like an XT60 for the second heater cartridge, because that's going to draw 40 watts at 12 volts. It needs a decent amount of current. So I would go with an XT60. It's probably overkill. You could probably do like XT30, but I would do an XT60 if you want to disconnect. And then just, you know, zip tie it all on the stock harness and it'll look really nice and clean. Do I need to upgrade my CR-10 to Dual Z? You do not. Dual Z is a lot better. Your motors are going to be on the left here, so they're going to be on the motor, so this side isn't going to sag anymore. Which is why I like this setup. This is nice and clean. It's unobtrusive. You know, it's a nice clean install. You're not printing out a giant bracket. I like this nice simple approach. This bracket's from my guy on Thingiverse. It was actually originally adapted for the TiVo Tornado, and then I printed them out and they fit on the Creality motors. So I personally like this. It's a nice clean setup. It's easy. You know, your tubes are all routed the same way versus I've seen some where they have a motor on the left and the right, and it just doesn't look as clean because you got both of the hot ends going, or both the Bowden tubes going to the hot end. It's personal preference. I prefer the one on the left here. It looks nicer. It's much easier to run. You're not running a second E-motor cable all the way over to the right side then. It's all on the left. Lost boxer, could the second filament be dissolvable? Yes, you could. If you're using PLA, PVA would be your dissolvable equivalent. If you're using ABS, you'd use HIPS for the dissolvable equivalent, and those both have similar print temperatures. So you could use the same nozzle and do a 2-to-1 to do dissolvable with PLA. It's not going to be an issue at all. So I've done it. My enclosed machine actually has the 2-to-1. Before this was enclosed, I played around with it a lot. I played with the dissolvable supports. It worked great. Like you guys can see, there's the simplicity of this. All you're running when you do a 2-to-1 is an extra stepper motor cable. That's it. You're not running a separate hot end wire. You're not using a separate thermistor. It's a very nice, quick install. It's clean. And for 99% of people that are going to be printing either two colors or a dissolvable material that prints at a similar print temp to your main material, the 2-to-1 works, and it works really well. The hardest part is getting your settings set in your slicer, so to help speed that process up so you're not starting over from square one, on our website, it's free for everybody. You can go on there. There's S3 example profiles. I believe we have Kira info up there. I found a bunch. I basically went on YouTube and watched a bunch of the videos people already did on dual extrusion and put links to those on the page, so they're all right there, so you don't have to sift through a million different videos that may or may not be what you're looking for. And I know Tor, I got to follow up with him because he was working on a Cura profile for the 2-in-1. I know the S3D one works because that's one I personally use. And that's all I use is Simplify 3D. So I know Cura does have dual extruder support because their Ultimakers have it. I have not personally used it with a 2-in-1 setup. I've only used Simplify 3D. But the key to being successful with this setup is having, like I said, that smaller diameter tubing right by the hot end so it can reform that melted plastic on the long retract, and you got to retract fast. So you want to zip that filament out of the hot end really quick, past the Y adapter, and then it'll be nice and formed, and then you can push it back through. Anybody have any other questions before I wrap this up? So this kind of gives you guys an insight. Like when you work on someone's printer, you don't know what's done to it. I'm not ragging on Tom or anything, but this is the kind of stuff we encounter all the time when people bring machines by. It's like you think it's going to be normal, and then you work on it, and you're like, oh, this has changed, or this doesn't work. So you got to go through and troubleshoot as you go. I just got to swap the X and the Z, and this will be good to go. That's why this carriage was stopping, is because it thinks it's already at the end stop, because the Z is hooked up and the Z shows triggered, because it's an O logic, which is what the opposite of the Creality switch is. Is there a way to get the sale price still be available for the bundle when it comes back in stock? You should be able to back order it. Let me check our site. Because we have more of the hot ends on the way. We have more of the Y adapters on the way. Let me see here. I gotta re-log into my sites. I cleared my browser history earlier. Let me log into the TS3D shop. You should be able to back order it. It shouldn't show out of stock. Let me check the products here. I'm showing the bundles are on back order. You should be able to order them on back order. I'm looking at the dual hot end and the 2-in-1. Because it's 10% off and you get the bracket. And the thing is, a lot of people are buying these printed brackets. Even though if you can print ABS, you can print the bracket yourself. What you're going to find is that you can't, unless you have a hardware store, you're going to have to buy like 20 of the screws you need and 20 of the nuts you need on Amazon. You're going to have to spend like $20 just on bolts and nuts when you only need one. So we include the other hardware. The screw and the nut are included with the the screw and the nut are included with this, along with the ABS spacer for the second extruder. So is there any way to get the sale price? Well, you can order it at the sale price right now. I'm not quite sure what you're asking. I'm going to the product pages right now. Mike, I'm going to remove your phone number there. I grabbed it. I don't want your phone number on there. Although it's I just realized it's on the live stream anyways, so. Oops. Yeah, you can add this to your cart. I'm gonna try right now adding it to my cart. I'm gonna add both of the bundles to my cart. That's weird. There's not enough stock remaining. Okay, so even though my site's showing I can add it to the cart. Alright, hang on. Allow here we go. Hang on. I was wondering why. There we go. Okay. Alright, try it now. I just allowed it to be back ordered. I thought that was set up because they're like bundles of the separate products, so we can track the inventory still. Let me see here. I think the product is still updating. Inventory, huh? It's not. It's got to be this bundle plugin that I'm using to bundle all these products together. Let me change a setting here. I'll try one more thing. I'm really sorry about that. I didn't. No one told me that they couldn't back order. I thought it was going to allow them to back order it. Let me see. 2-in-1 hot end adapter. I'm glad I found that out because that was that would have been bad. Because that I gotta let the plugin maker know that they messed that up, because it should, if my logic says that if the product itself can be back ordered, the bundle should be able to be back ordered. That, if that makes sense, or am I just rambling? Go ahead and try now. And if anybody asks the reason we don't have extruders in the bundles is because some people want the aluminum extruders, some people want the tough extruder, or some people have their own extruders. So, yeah, it's kind of like, okay, here's a bundle with most of the parts you need, and then just pick what extruders you're going to use on your machine. For the dual hot end kit, I don't have a machine that needs the dual hot end kit put on it. I was going to do an assembly video on how to actually put together the dual hot end kit. I'm just putting all of Tom's parts back in here, so he has them when I give the printer back to him. So the only difference between the dual hot end kit and this one is mounting the hot end, and then you're running another set of wires for the... You're running another set of wires for the thermistor and the heater. That's the only difference between this and the other one. This one's a little quicker because you don't have to do that. And, you know, as you can see, this works really nice. It's nice and clean. It still moves just as the stock one did. And we have the stock hot end on here, so you're not having to change a bunch of different stuff on it. That's why I like the 2-in-1. It's a quick setup, and you don't lose build area. So on the dual hot end, or any dual hot ends, whether you have dual independent hot ends or the two hot ends on one block, whatever your offset is. So the offset is the distance between the two nozzles. So for example, the dual hot end we sell, which is similar to the E3D Chimera, has a nozzle spacing of 18 millimeters. So on your X, you're going to lose 36 millimeters in total. So 18 on the left and 18 on the right. That's the drawback to running a dual nozzle. Whereas a 2-in-1, you have the same build area as your printer did before you had dual extrusion. And the nice thing is, when you're running a 2-in-1, if you want to just print one color, you just load up your first extruder just like you would if you didn't have the Y adapter. You can leave the second one empty. So there's not a lot of, you don't have to change your slicer profile even. So if you have a good solid single profile, then you can keep using that profile if you're only going to print with the first extruder. So you can have a completely separate profile for the second extruder setup, and you don't have to change any of your process for single color. It's exactly the same with the 2-in-1. Whereas the second one, where you have the dual nozzles, you're going to have to account for that loss of the build area, and then that other nozzle just hanging out there. And if you do the mixing block on the 2-in-1 dual hot end, then you're also going to have both extruders loaded so the filament doesn't backfeed. And Tom, your extrusion had some aluminum shavings, and I was just sitting there looking, and I was like, that looks like aluminum shavings. Looks like Creality didn't get it out. Mike, send me an email to Tim at TH3D Studio. I'm gonna go to bed in a little bit here. I'm exhausted. So I apologize this isn't printing, but it's going to take me another 15-20 minutes to tear this down to switch the X and Z end stop. So I don't want to keep you guys waiting. I'd rather tidy this all up and then do a video tomorrow showing it printing and getting the slicer set up. But we covered all the hardware here, including what to do if you swapped out your motor. The tough hot, so for the dual, the tough hot with nozzle kit, yes, that works with the CR-10S. It works with any of the printers. That will use any of the standard existing CR10 mounts that work with an E3D V6. It's the same mounting length, the neck. It's all the same because it's based on the V6 source, which is all open hardware. So we just have someone else make them for us off of the open source design of the V6. So, and you can use the tough hot end with the 2-in-1. So that's why I kind of like the 2-in-1 is if you already have an existing hot end that's Bowden that you like, you don't have to give up your hot end that you like. You can use the same one. So, but if you go into the knowledge base, there is a article called Dual Extrusion Setup Information, and it goes over all the different options: 2-in-1, dual nozzles, and then a dual hot end with the mixing block. The mixing block is the least popular one. It's just included in the dual hot end kit because some people do want to be able to mix materials, which is kind of cool because you can then mix like PETG and PLA in the same print. It's very hard to get set up in your slicer, but it is something that can be done. But most people are going to go to the 2-in-1, and then I'd say it's probably like a 60-40 split. Like 60% are going to do the 2-in-1, 40% are going to do the dual independent nozzles. So it really depends on what your needs are. What do you want to do? If you just want to do dual colors, the 2-in-1's fine. Just spend some time tweaking your profile. If you need help doing that, we've got our TH3D Facebook group, we've got our forums, we've got our Discord. There's a ton of information in our Facebook group already. So if you're a customer, you can join that. There's a guy, I believe his name, I want to say it was Mike, but he posted a wall of text explaining everything from the installation portion that we just did to the slicer setup. So it was a really nice write-up. I'm trying to see if I can pull up his information here, what his name was, so you can search for it. Let me see here. And I don't know if you guys saw the CRX. That is Creality's dual extrusion printer, and what it looks like is they're using a mixing block, which I'm going to be curious to see how well that works, because I haven't seen it implemented. Thorbot tried to do that, and it got nothing but jams. I'm curious to see that. I have a feeling they're going to get a lot of returns on that printer because it's going to be a pain to get working. His name, the guy in the group, his name is Jeff Williams. He's got a whole thing written up here: setup and configuration, slicer configuration, printer prep, things to note. What he used dual tough extruders on his, but it's going to be the same whether you have the tough extruders or the aluminum extruders. Same idea. So yeah. I think that's all I have for you guys right now. What I'm going to do when I get off stream here is I'm going to clean up this work area, and then I'm going to do some cable management on here for Tom. I'm basically going to take this second E cable and then just zip tie this down with the existing cable. And then just tidy everything up. And I'm going to take a look at why this arm was a little loose on here. It seems fine now that the spring's on it, so it might just be me being special. But they're working fine with it on here. So, and then obviously get it printing. And yeah, that'll be it. I gotta think of I don't want to do a multicolored benchy. I want to do something cooler than that. Um, but yeah, we'll see what I come up with. I'm just exhausted right now. A little disappointed I couldn't. I don't have time to get this printing because one, I screwed up the X and Y, and then we were screwing around with the motors. But the point is, the physical work's done. He's got all his stuff on here. Um, it's all functioning. The motors are moving. I just got to swap the X and the Z end stop because I flipped them in there when I was switching the board. So just double check that. And then if I get time, I'll fire this up tomorrow and we'll do another stream and I'll show you guys it printing. And then go through the slicer setup and all that other fun stuff. Tom, if you're still here and listening, I'll have this ready for you to pick up on Sunday. And then, yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching me work and fumble around on your printer here. But it wouldn't be a live stream without some hiccups. Every time, whether it's a review or something, there's always hiccups. It is what it is. It doesn't faze me. It's annoying, but you know, what are you gonna do? So, that's all for tonight, and I appreciate everybody stopping by. I'm completely not looking at the camera. If you guys want to check out some of the stuff that we featured here, it's all in the TH3D shop. You can go to th3dstudio.com and then click the shop icon right on the front of the page. We have a TH3D community forum set up now. We've got a Discord. We've got a customer Facebook group. So if you're a TH3D customer, meaning you bought anything from us, you can join up in the group. We don't have the Facebook group completely open because we try to keep it to people that actually have our products instead of just turning into a general help forum. We do have a general 3D printing group, which is linked down in the description below as well. So forums for everybody, Discord is for everybody, and if you're a customer, check out the Facebook group. And then we also have, like I said, the general Facebook 3D printing group. So I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to get this cleaned up, and then I'll see you guys tomorrow if everything goes to plan. Tom, awesome you're still here. I'm glad you tuned in. And thanks for the curveballs. Yeah, so that's all, folks. I'm glad the LTE internet is actually running well enough to stream. I'm really impressed that that actually worked. So at least I got that going for me because Comcast still, it's been 2 weeks and they can't provide me with a working service. Amazing. Anyways, I'm gonna clean up and then go pass out, and then I'll be back tomorrow. I'm not sure what time yet, so follow our Facebook group, our website. I usually post in the forums, Discord, or Facebook page whenever we got a live stream coming out. So I kind of blast it out everywhere so everyone knows when it's happening. So thanks for stopping by. I hope I answered you guys' questions. I hope I showed you something cool. Hope you didn't mind me fumbling around, but I think it's good when I run into issues because it makes you guys see that, like, I'm someone who has a lot of experience with these machines, and I have issues sometimes, you know, and you got to work through those problems. So not everybody just goes in and, you know, I can fix the printer instantly. You know, there's always troubleshooting. There's always going to be curveballs, and you have to know how to tinker and want to tinker to be in this hobby. If you can't, you're going to have a bad time, or you're going to be paying a lot to have somebody else do it for you. So anyways, those are my words of wisdom. You know, take them with a grain of salt. They're worth exactly how much you just paid for them. So take it easy, guys, and happy printing.